Today, more employment and wages number wanging. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, the biannual average weekly earnings survey for all full-time adults was released by the ABS today, and it reports an anemic $1,770 in May 2022, up just 1.9% or $33 over the year. That's according to new seasonally adjusted figures just released. This is so far off what the RBA was projecting as to be nearly funny. The RBA's August statement on monetary policy also noted that broader measures of labour income growth are expected to increase at a faster rate than the wage price index over the forecast period, as more hours are worked at overtime rates and as workers move jobs for higher pay. And it then produced a chart showing strong growth in average earnings per hour. But this is just not happening. So the question is, what does this do for the RBA's cash raising cycle? Actually, probably not much, though you have to question whether inflation from strong wages claims is in any way a thing in Australia. Still, the ABS said the recent annual increase in full-time earnings of 1.9% was higher than it was last May at 1.4%, but it was lower than in November 2021 when it was 2.1%, and also lower than the 2.6% for the wage price index, which of course was released yesterday, and I covered that in an earlier post. Now, true, the ABS did say percentage movements in average weekly earnings can be affected by changes in both the level of earnings per employee and in the composition of employment. And those statistics provide some insights into weekly earnings for males and females, including information by industry, sector and state and territory of work. And they're probably one of the best sources of information for measuring weekly earnings differences between males and females in Australia. The latest average earnings data follows a 6-month period of considerable compositional change in the labour market, with relatively strong average monthly employment growth of around 46,000 people. Bear that number out for later. Over the past 6 months, there has been increasing employment, including full-time employment, in some lower-paying industries, such as accommodation and food services, placing some downward influence on changes in average earnings, the ABS said. May also follows a period of reasonably strong growth in employment for women and for younger workers, who have tended to have lower average full-time earnings. Over the 6 months to May 2022, average weekly ordinary time earnings for full-time men rose by 1.4% to $1,873, which was higher than for women at 1.1% at $1,609. However, over the year, the increase was higher for women at 2.1% than men at 2%. The gap in the headline measure of average weekly full-time earnings for men and women increased slightly from 13.8% in November 2021 to 14.1% in May 2022, although remained below the 14.2% from May 2021. And average weekly ordinary time earnings for full-time workers continues to be the highest in the ACT at 1,988 and in Western Australia at 1,937, and remains lowest in Tasmania at 1,568 and South Australia at 1,624. And workers in the mining industry remained the highest paid on average at $2,701 a week for full-time workers, followed by those in the information, media and telecommunications sector at $2,236, and the financial and insurance services sector at $2,148. The lowest paid full-time workers, on average, were in the accommodation and food services at $1,220 a week and retail trade at $1,327 a week. The release also included earnings for all employees, full-time and part-time, which showed that average earnings for all male employees increased by 2% over the year to $1,587, and for all female employees by 4.3% to $1,116 a week. Given women are much more likely to work part-time than men, there continues to be a larger gap in earnings for all employees than for full-time employees of around 29.7%, the ABS has said. Now, also out today was the latest labour force data for July 2022. The seasonally adjusted unemployment rate fell to 3.4% in July, according to the data from the ABS. In fact, though, Australia lost 40,900 jobs, down 0.3% over the month, and hours worked fell by 16 million hours, down 0.8%. This loss of 40,900 jobs badly missed analysts' expectations. They'd expected a growth of around 25,000 jobs in July. But spinning nicely, the ABS said, with employment falling by 41,000 people and the number of unemployed people also decreasing by 20,000, the unemployment rate fell by 0.1 percentage points to 3.4%. But of course, because the labour force participation rate fell by 0.3% to 64.4%, the nation's unemployment rate actually fell by 0.1% to 3.4%, and that's the lowest rate since August 1974. And so, of course, the mainstream media reported the good news. The unemployment rate fell for men. It was down 0.2 percentage points to 3.4% and remained steady at 3.4% for women. The fall in unemployment in July reflects an increasingly tight labour market, including high job vacancies and ongoing labour shortages, resulting in the lowest unemployment rate since August 1974, the ABS said. In July, there were fewer unemployed people, 474,000, than there were job vacancies at 480,000 in May. With a fall in both employment and unemployment in July, the participation rate also fell, down 0.3 percentage points from its record high of 68.8% to 64.6%. It remains 0.5 percentage points higher than before the pandemic. And the participation rate also fell for both men and women, down 0.4 and 0.3 percentage points respectively. The July reference period, though, coincided with the winter school holidays, worker absences associated with COVID and other illnesses, and further flooding events in New South Wales. This is the first fall in employment since October 2021, following the easing of restrictions after the Delta lockdowns in late 2021. During the pandemic, it has not been uncommon to see larger than usual changes or slowing unemployment and hours around school holidays, the ABS said. With the fall in employment, the employment to population ratio decreased 0.2 percentage points to 64.2%, and youth unemployment, those aged between 15 and 24 years, increased further in July, increasing by 13,000 people, or 0.7%. That's the third consecutive increase. And in line with the fall in employment and continued illness-related worker absences, seasonally adjusted hours worked fell by 0.8% in July 2022. The reference period for the July 2022 survey mostly closely aligned with the July 2017 survey. And in 2022, 28.4% of employed people, or 3,856,000, worked fewer hours than usual, or no hours, compared with 27.1%, 3.317 million, 5 years earlier. In addition to people taking annual leave around the winter school holidays, there was also around 750,000 people working fewer hours than usual due to being sick in July 2022, almost double the usual number we see during the middle of winter. Given the extent of sickness within the community during July, some people who were on annual leave over the school holidays may have also been sick or caring for others. And the underemployment rate decreased by 0.1 percentage points to 6%, and the youth underemployment rate increased by 0.1 percentage points to 14.1%. The underutilisation rate, which combines the unemployment and underemployment rates, fell by 0.2 percentage points to 9.4%. That's the lowest level since April 1982. And looking at the information on a state-by-state basis, the unemployment rate was lowest at 3.1% in Victoria and 3.3% in New South Wales, 3.2% in Western Australia, and it was highest at 4.0% in South Australia and 3.8% in Queensland. And the participation rate was lowest in South Australia at 62.5% and Tasmania at 60.6%. and it was highest at 72.5% in the Northern Territory and 70.3% in the ACT. New South Wales was 65.8% and Victoria was 66.6%. Now, with those two sets of data, wages not growing very strongly and the unemployment wobbling, tell me again why the Albanese government is preparing to ramp immigration to its highest ever level in the upcoming October federal budget, which will make unemployment rise, of course, and will destroy the prospect for wages growth. But here is a clue from the Treasury's Jobs and Skills paper we released yesterday. Quote, well-targeted migration can help boost our workforce and economic growth. It's estimated that the average migrant makes a lifetime contribution to GDP of $2.3 million, while the average primary skilled independent visa holder contributes $4.6 million. Well, of course, there's no show their workings on that number, which is quite convenient. And it just goes to show that they're only interested in growing the top-line GDP number, nothing to do with GDP per capita, nothing to do with growth in real income, and nothing to do with getting the unemployment on a more feasible and sustainable basis. So very myopically focused, of course, and so the number wanging continues and supports ever high migration at a time when probably some migration's okay, but we don't want too much of it. The economy is quite weak already, and if you want wages to grow in real terms, then restricting migration a little bit rather than open the taps full on would make a lot more sense. And by the way, it would also help the unemployment rate as well. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.